method about scientific understanding and positivism and variance theory, and we compare the qualitative and quantitative research method and the research process, including how to find the good topics and how to confine, how to define your good research questions and research ideas. And we focus mostly on one of the quantitative research, especially the data collection method, which called experiment. Yesterday, we looked at all about survey data collection. So we had done the lab for Qualtrics. So hopefully it was helpful for you. Maybe later on when you design a survey online, and you probably make a use of that tool. If you have any questions from yesterday, please let me know. And we had discussed cross-sectional and longitudinal research, so that I will be covering a little bit today. And today we'll be covering different type of quantitative research, focusing on data analysis method, focusing on PLS as a partial least square, while covariance-based method will be covered by Dr. Adas starting from tomorrow. So what I will do is that I will start with the where we have to left off. But before we start, and I like to answer Jingjing's questions. I had studied a little bit of the KMO test. So basically, this is the test for sampling adequacy, but it measures how well your data is suited for factor analysis. Okay, so that means that when we do, again, I think I have a briefly mentioned exploratory factor analysis or principal component analysis using SPSS that you might have heard of while you're taking the research method course of your own. And when we do factor analysis, so researchers mindlessly run the factor analysis without checking if my data set is good enough to put into the factor analysis. So that this test kind of is a prerequisite, okay, previous condition for me to get some assurance to put my data set into the factor analysis. Okay, so if the data that I collected do not pass the KMO test, then it is a bit meaningless for me to use a factor analysis to go further on the measurement property analysis. So this is kind of precondition for factor analysis. So, I mean, the SPSS and STATA and R provide this measure with the sample data. The PLS, I didn't see it with the Smart PLS. Maybe other package might, but you probably want to check if you have to this measure using data set that you have collected, and using SPSS or STATA or R. That I don't want to cover it because I have things to do. In order to make sure that your data set is good enough for putting into factor analysis. Once you pass that, that means, I think based on the criteria that I found, if a data set has KMO value greater than 0.6, it is okay. It's not the greatest. The great one is over 0.8, but if it's over 0.6, so you could put your data into factor analysis for further measurement property. And my advice is that do it when it's required by review team or your field of study, because I've never seen this in MIS. I didn't really see much in marketing research paper. OB, not much, but probably IB and other field might use this in order to make sure that your measurement property analysis is good enough for the vector analysis. Okay, so that's my answer. Hopefully it's helpful. So is it similar to what you have searched for? Okay, sure. So let's go on with the cross-sectional and longitudinal survey. So I told you that, by the way, those who are not here, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well, Professor.
Good. Yeah. Good. You hear me? Yeah. Great. Yeah. All right. So again, when you want to ask a question, please type the question into the chatting box, because in that way you could hear, you can read the questions wherever you are. So if it's in hybrid mode, the best way to sharing the question is to type your question into the chatting box. So I'm gonna go a little bit quick in terms of for the theoretical part, in order to save some time for our lab, because we have like a 2-hour-ish lab that I will have a lot of explanation in the lab as well. So cross-sectional study, cross-sectional methodology itself come from the experimental design, but this is kind of limited experimental design. So we call cross-sectional survey if all the variables are measured at one time, at the same time, while longitudinal study, whether or not it's a survey or it's the archival data collection, and we call longitudinal study if the data is collected multiple times, especially so if we want to achieve good causality of the impact of individual, the independent variable on dependent variable, that it is important to make sure that dependent variable was measured after some time period after the independent variable has been applied to the research subject. So true causality can only be made under longitudinal study. So if you ever do one-time survey, which is cross-sectional study, and then please refrain from, don't use the word influence, impact, and effect, or something like that. So all the thing that you hypothesize is probably association related. So instead of A influence, saying A influence B, which imply the causality, you want to say that A is positively or negatively associated with a B. So that is a bit more correct terminology if you do cross-sectional survey. So cross-sectional survey causes a problem of common method bias, self-selection bias, which is where just because you are answering a questionnaire, a set of questionnaire in that way, you tend to answer the other set of the questionnaire in the other way in similar. So that make a common method bias. Okay, so that's what I have mentioned. But a lot of people who are doing